Welcome to SUNY Corning Community College's first online virtual theater production. I'm Mary Guzzy. I'm Professor of Theater Arts and Humanities here at the college, and I'm here tonight with my friend, writer, collaborator, and fellow educator, Gwen Davis-Feldman. Together we want to welcome you to share these reflections on our country's long struggles for social and economic equity. We hope these stories will help you reflect on how our day-to-day lives can influence positive change. These stories tell the stories of heroes who, while wrestling with powerful injustice, were able to return from the battlefield with notes.
Thank you, Mary. What we've tried to do is take those notes to highlight the current status of social justice here in this country. We've assembled an international cast of actors, educators, and students whose dramatic readings will focus on the continuing struggle to gain civil rights in America and the world. We've all lived long enough to know that history truly does repeat itself. We cannot afford to take our advances in social justice for granted. As James Baldwin once said, ignorance allied with power is the most ferocious enemy justice can have. We cannot give back what our heroes have struggled mightily to accomplish.
You know, Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage." And the theater remains a vehicle for illuminating issues of social justice, spreading courage by telling the stories of perseverance and hope. Even during this pandemic, with democracy under duress and stages across the country and the world going dark, theater people are finding new ways to create and illuminate untold history. Why? Because creativity is its own life force. Thank you for taking time to reflect on the work that remains in order to achieve the democracy we crave. And now, America, seasons of struggle, harvest of hope.
What does it mean to love a world filled with people who do not love you back?
Good evening. Why does it always have to be about race? I was asked this question by a 10th grade student after a classroom discussion had turned to the notorious O.J. Simpson case. To some students, Orenthal James Simpson was the hero they wished they could be, while for others, the trial became a low-road referendum on why beautiful white women should not marry black men. Race relations in this country, I said, are like a deep wound that scabs over too soon. Sometimes that scab is pulled off because the wound has not healed. My analogy held. The United States of America is a beautiful 50-part body, but it is a body that, when naked, is scarred with old bandages hastily applied over the decades to staunch the bloody flow of recall. I grew up in Compton, California. In 1969, in the wake of 4 political assassinations, I marched across Compton High's graduation stage to receive my diploma, a piece of paper weighted with hope for my future in college and beyond. But my heart was never so full of hope as it was when I witnessed Barack Obama sworn in as the first African-American president of these United States. For most of us, black and white, there was a collective hope that in 2009 this country could heal and become more than simply a loose affiliation of wounded states. But the hopes and dreams of those working to keep the conversation alive could not survive the resurrection, the reemergence of the bare-knuckled fist of America's manifest destiny, now dressed in the regalia of white supremacy. It is true, history is written by the victor. That whites should reap the benefits of a stolen land is an idea hard-baked into 20th century white supremacy. Today, the prevailing white power structure continues to gore the body of America in its failure to recognize the Native American as worthy, even human. Race, the idea, is the social construct embraced by early white America to justify supremacy, thereby excusing the sin of owning another human being. Slavery and its aftermath continues to eat away at the U.S. body. Today, that body still suffers from severe wounds, still writhes in hateful, violent spasms of white supremacy. It grieves me to know that we still have to remind people that we are human and that our lives matter. It grieves me to know that the closer we get to that table of humanity, the further away it seems. Today, we protest to highlight the vulgarity of social corruption within the U.S. body. We protest to remove the bandages and scrape the scab from social wounds to further allow the pus of hatred to drain. Yes, it is about race, and until we heal from the inside out by addressing white supremacy in all its forms, it will always be about race.
Brothers, we all belong to one family. We are all children of the Great Spirit. We walk in the same path, slake our thirst at the same spring.
Brothers, we are friends. We must assist each other to bear our burdens. The blood of many of our fathers and brothers runs like water on the ground to satisfy the avarice of the white men. We ourselves are presented with a great evil. Nothing will pacify them but the destruction of all the red men.
Brothers, when the white men first set foot on our grounds, they were hungry. They had no place on which to spread their blankets or to kindle their fires. They were feeble. They could do nothing for themselves. Our Father commiserated their distress and shared freely with them whatever the Great Spirit had given his red children. They gave them food when hungry, medicine when sick, spread skins for them to sleep on, and gave them grounds that they may hunt and raise corn.
Brothers, the white men are not friends to the Indians. At first, they only asked for land sufficient for a wigwam. Now, nothing will satisfy them but the whole of our hunting grounds, from the rising to the setting sun.
Brothers, who are the white people that we should fear them? They cannot run fast and are good marks to shoot at. They are only men. Our fathers have killed many of them. We will stain the earth red with blood.
Brothers, we must be united. We must smoke the same pipe. We must fight each other's battles. And more than all, we must love the Great Spirit. He is for us. He will destroy our enemies and make all his red children happy.
I don't like standing here with a bucket and a sign, and I haven't seen my family for a very long time. And I don't mean to make you feel guilty on top of all of your stress and strain, but like me, you're praying to the Lord above, begging for some change. You're begging for some change that'll turn your life around, change that'll put your feet on the ground, change that'll make everything okay. I'm talking about a change for the good of everyone, change for the love of everyone, change that'll make everything okay.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would, today, pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not the light that is needed, but the fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed. And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to me, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which I am a constant victim. To me, your celebration is a sham, a boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty, they're heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass confronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, which all your religious parade and solemnity are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes, which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour.
She can tell by the color of your skin. You are armed and dangerous.
Armed with camera and your ability to reveal her to the world, you frighten her more than her attempts to scare you.
She has 911 on speed dial, like the antebellum Southern Belle. Confident, every black man wants her to hurt. She is certain her trembling voice will unleash her powerful parade of white privilege.
For your insolence,
impudence,
audacity, to expect her to see you, a black man, as human.
Someone should take her, pitiable ignorance aside, remind her that if Jim Crow, in all his inhumane power, could not kill you, the black man, she has a snowball chance in hell of doing so.
The hand that has not moved.
You, the human, can forgive.
I was born March 15, 1909. Every morning, all the kids would line up according to classrooms, and we'd all have prayers and sing the Star-Spangled Banner, and then we'd march to our respective groups after this business.
I decided I wasn't going to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. I was sent to the principal, and he asked me why I wasn't singing the Star-Spangled Banner.
Finally, I told him, because it says the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's not the land of the free. I don't know who's brave, but I'm not going to sing it anymore. Then he says, why? You've been singing it all this time, haven't you? How come you want to stop now? And I told him about coming through the park, and if I could not swing on a swing in the park, and I cannot sit in the park, and I can only walk in Shakespeare Park, then it couldn't be the land of the free. Who's free? He didn't say anything. He said,
well, you could pledge allegiance to your flag. I said, it's not my flag. The flag is with freedom. If the land is free and the flag is mine, then how come I can't do like the white kids?
The phone rang at midnight. A reporter got a hold of me and asked, "Have you heard that your house was bombed?" I said, "No, I hadn't heard that."
I'd always assumed that a lot of the harassment we received was just to intimidate us. We were outsiders, and we'd come to make trouble. First bomb that night had 11 sticks of dynamite. They'd prepared 7 bombs. One of them landed up near the house, and the next down on the sloping driveway. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a shock. Blew out all the doors and windows and lifted the roof up.
There were bombs aimed at 4 African American churches and 2 homes, the Reverend Ralph Abernathy's home and our home. The most dreadful thing about that bombing was that David, our son, had just been born. 9 days old. The thought of tiny babies having bombs thrown at them in the middle of the night was incredibly difficult to deal with. My mother had just come down to help take care of the babies, and she was devastated. They arrested 7 men from Selma. They had all the evidence against them. It was a solid case against 7 white men. They had a trial, then they were turned loose, which was part of a long pattern. Any white man who was charged with a crime against a black person was freed. What do I think? What do I think of the landscape across Alabama and America today? I think this is probably one of the most dangerous periods that I've ever lived through in the world. And what's the solution? The solution must come in small pieces. Whenever you can find 2 or 3 or half a dozen people ready to begin building some semblance of order, we have to grab onto that and begin building. That's it. Well, I think we have a long, long road. Do I see any reason for optimism? Anytime I see 2 people getting together and smiling.
April 1963. My fellow clergymen, while confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling my present activities unwise and untimely. So I, along with several members of my staff, am here because I was invited here. But more basically, I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. You deplore the demonstrations taking place in Birmingham. Your statement, I'm sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations. I'm sure that none of you would want to rest content with the superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with effects and does not grapple with underlying causes. It is unfortunate that demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's white power structure left the Negro community with no alternative. You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are quite right in calling for negotiation. Indeed, this is the very purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and foster such tension that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. It seeks to dramatize the issue that it can no longer be ignored. My citing the creation of tension as part of the work of the nonviolent resistor may sound rather shocking, but I must confess that I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly opposed violent tension, but there is a type of constructive nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth. Just as Socrates felt that it was necessary to create a tension in the mind so that individuals could rise from the bondage of myths and half-truths to the unfettered realm of creative analysis and objective appraisal, so must we see the need for nonviolent gadflies to create the kind of tension in society that will help men rise from the dark depths of prejudice and racism to the majestic heights of understanding and brotherhood. Yours for the cause of peace and brotherhood, MLK.
Here's the lesson at the heart of today's topic. If you believe you're exceptional, you won't do the work. And if you don't do the work, you'll continue to cause harm, even if that's not your intention. You are not an exceptional white person, meaning you're not exempt from the conditioning of white supremacy, from the benefits of white privilege, or from the responsibility of doing this work for the rest of your life. The moment you begin to think you're an exceptional white person is the moment you'll relax back into the warm, familiar comfort of white supremacy.
What kind of human being are you going to choose to be? What kind of virtues and visions and values will you enact and embody in the short time that you are in space and time?
There is no such thing as a race problem in the history of the American Empire. There are catastrophes that have been visited on Black people and red people. As soon as you reduce the catastrophic to the problematic, you've already sanitized the issue.
How dare we believe that the all in liberty and justice for includes us? How dare we believe our marching will bring about change? How dare we stomp on the weak promise of equality? How dare we want the privilege to walk, talk, drive, be in any space, any place? How dare we reach into the tall grass of corruption to throttle the snake of injustice? How dare we show the audacity of hope? How dare we? How dare we not?
Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back and wait and allow ourselves and each other to lose control of our fate. There'll be no sacrifice, no more jail, 'cause we've been waiting way too long. We don't wait, we don't mourn, we got a mind of our own. That's right, we can't go wrong if we stand up and be strong. Huh. Come on.
Then they talk about this thing in the head. What's this they call it? Intellect? That's it, honey. What's that got to do with women's rights or Negroes' rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Then that little man in the back there, he says women can't have as much rights as men 'cause Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it, the men better let them.
Has the prisoner anything to say why sentence shall not be pronounced?
Yes, Your Honor. I have many things to say. For in your ordered verdict of guilty, you have trampled underfoot every vital principle of our government. Robbed of the fundamental privilege of citizenship, I am degraded from the status of citizen to that of a subject. And not only myself individually, but all of my sex are, by your Honor's verdict, doomed to political subjugation under this so-called Republican form of government.
The court cannot listen to a rehearsal of argument which the prisoner's counsel has already consumed 3 hours.
No, may it please, Your Honor, I am not arguing the question, but simply stating the reasons why sentence cannot, in justice, be pronounced against me. Your denial of my citizen's right to vote is the denial of my right of consent as one of the governed, the right of my representation as one of the taxed, the denial of my right to a trial by a jury of my peers as an offender against the law. Therefore, the denial of my sacred right of life, liberty, property.
The court must insist. The prisoner has already been tried according to the established forms of law.
Oh, yes. Yes, Your Honor, but by forms of law all made by men, interpreted by men, administered by men, in favor of men and against women. And hence your Honor's verdict of guilty against a United States citizen for the exercise of the citizen's right to vote simply because that citizen was a woman and not a man. But yesterday, the same man-made forms of law declared it a crime punishable with $1,000 fine and 6 months imprisonment to give a cup of water, a crust of bread, or a night shelter to a panting fugitive tracking his way to Canada. Oh, and every man or woman whose veins coursed a drop of human sympathy violated that wicked law, reckless of consequences, and was justified in doing so.
The sentence of the court is that you pay a fine of $100 and the costs of the prosecution.
May it please your honor, I will never pay $1 of your unjust penalty. All the stock in trade I possess is a debt of $10,000 incurred by publishing my paper, The Revolution, the sole object of which was to educate all women to do precisely what I have done, rebel against your man-made, unjust, unconstitutional forms of law which fine, imprison, and hang women while denying them the right of representation in the government. And I will work with might and main to pay every dollar of that honest debt. But not a penny shall go to this unjust claim.
Although our country makes great professions in regards to general liberty, yet the right to particular liberty, natural equality, and personal independence of two great portions of this country is treated with the greatest contempt. Color in the one instance and sex in the other. Natural rights is frowned upon as tending to promote sedition and anarchy. We need not expect the concessions demanded by women will be peacefully granted. There will be a long moral warfare before the citadel yields. In the meantime, let us take possession of the outposts. The public must be aroused to a full sense of the justice of our claims. All great reforms are gradual. Fear not any attempt to frown down the revolution already commenced. Work on. Press on. Pause not in fear. Preach no desponding, servile view. Work on and win. Let the truth prevail.
Women are invisible people in America today. Women who have a share in the decisions of government, of politics, of the church. Women who say what their own lives and personalities are going to be, and no longer listen to or even permit male experts to define what feminine is or isn't. To confront our inequality, we must confront both society's denigration of us and our own self-denigration. When women are active, self-determining people beyond motherhood, motherhood will be a joyous, responsible human act. When women are free to make, with full conscious choice and full human responsibility, the decisions to become mothers. The punishment of women is far more a factor in the abortion question than anybody ever admits. Men will truly be liberated to love women and to fully be themselves when women have a full say in the decisions of their lives and their society. If we relate to each other without so much hate and jealousy, buried resentment and hypocrisies, there will be a new sense of love. It's crucial that we see this question of abortion as more than a quantitative move, more than a politically expedient move. Abortion rights is not a question of political expedience. It is part of something greater. Women's voices are finally being heard in the question of abortion, both in its basic sense of morality and in its political sense of sexual equality. In this confrontation, we are changing the very terms of the debate on abortion to assert women's right to choose and to define the terms of our lives, ourselves, to full human dignity.
How to phrase it? Ma, I want to fall in love with a fella.
I belong to a culture that includes Proust, Henry James, Tchaikovsky, Cole Porter, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Alexander the Great, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Christopher Marlowe, Walt Whitman, Herman Melville, Tennessee Williams, Byron, E.M. Forster, Lorca, Auden, Francis Bacon, James Baldwin, Harry Stack Sullivan, John Maynard Keynes, Doc Hammarskjöld. These are not invisible men.
Progress is unimaginably difficult, dangerous, always at risk, always made by people with only partial vision. The straight and narrow, so beloved of our founding fathers and all fathers thereafter, is now obviously and irrevocably bent. What is God trying to tell us?
Religion is such an icky, sticky thing, full of torturous, well, everything. Why is it so essential for man to be forced? For that is what religion relies on. Force to believe in anything but himself. And this is what John Winthrop should represent for us, the utter disdain he and Puritanism have for the self, for the human being.
We're all different in many ways, and alike in many ways, and special in some sort of way.
And I always thought the very simplest words must be enough. When I say what things are like, everyone's heart must be torn to shreds. That you'll go down if you don't stand up for yourself. Surely you see that.
A person's body is merely home of their soul, a mantra we have all heard. It never made any sense to me. I've never been at home in my body like one of the other boys. See, my body is a towel that isn't quite big enough. I mean, it will cover all your bits to get the job done, but no matter how you tie, hold, fold, body roll, hold, or stretch it out, it will never feel completely right and be what you need. See, my body doesn't match how I am on the inside. Something so many people say to their loved ones. Our spirits are other than what you see. Which, this is a hard go. To always, no matter your location, everyone notices your existence. Not presence, existence. Breathing in and out, in and out. People see me before I see them. I am that loud-looking person wearing the clothes you don't understand. The one in the skirt and the makeup, the label purse, and a beard. Bathrooms are the hardest. Rise from the table and clutch my purse. Start towards the bathroom, but not too eager, though, because the whole restaurant sees your purse and beard. I'm in a skirt and heels. I see a man at the bar elbow his friend and point me out to him. His buddy whispers back as they point at me. They laugh hysterically, maybe even hear them spit tranny at me as I walk by. Keep walking, don't notice, don't react, or say a single word. They called me nothing. I am nothing. Just have to pee. Tables stare at me as I move to the back. Kids ask, why is he dressed like that? And parents shush them while shooting me dirty looks. Angry, angry at me that they have to answer questions they don't think should be asked or considered or even seen. Keep moving, must pee. I swear I'm just trying to be me. At the back, at the bathroom. Which to use? Men or women? Women or men? Do you know the fear, the anxiety of needing to pee as you enter a bathroom and noticing several stalls? You actually consider pissing your skirt and stilettos so as not to risk the two ladies washing their hands or touching up their lipstick, noticing you, seeing you, not the you want to be, but the you that people see. Beard or shaved, makeup or no, because it doesn't matter my decision, it's wrong either way. Being gendered is having your inherent you-ness dictated for you before you have even considered it. Do you know what it's like to look in the mirror and see the body you have been gifted and feel as if it doesn't fit like a shirt or pants wouldn't? Completely nude, bare naked down to your soul, admiring the contours of the body you've been given, seeing how attractive you are. I look down and see the peaks and valleys that poke out at me from under my clothes or my towel, and my body feels like it belongs to someone else. Like someone took my brain, my consciousness, whipped my very soul out of my body and placed it in a hairy, smelly, uncomfortable, just plain wrong avatar. Being trans is like being trapped in a real-life version of The Sims, where you can't customize your character and you can never escape. I am attracted to men. Full stop. If I wasn't me, looked completely different, and I met me, I'd think I was cute. Conceited? Maybe. Honest? Absolutely. I am not autosexual. I do not want to be with myself and only myself alone. But if I, not as me, was walking down the street and someone who looked like me did I meet, I would find myself attractive. But I don't feel attractive. Just another aspect of my hell. I think my body is beautiful. I am beautiful.
I rise to oppose the motion by the Leader of the Opposition, and in doing so, I say to the Leader of the Opposition, I will not, and this government will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now, not ever. The Leader of the Opposition says that people who hold sexist views and who are misogynists are not appropriate for high office. Well, I hope the Leader of the Opposition is writing out his resignation, because if he wants to know what misogyny looks like in modern Australia, he doesn't need a motion in the House of Representatives. He needs a mirror. We are now supposed to take seriously that the Leader of the Opposition is offended by Mr. Slipper's text messages, when this is the Leader of the Opposition who has said that men have more power, generally speaking, than women. Is that a bad thing? In response to a person who says, I want my daughter to have as much opportunity as my son, his reply, yeah, I completely agree. But what if men, by physiology or temperament, are more adapted to exercise authority or to issue command? This is the man from whom we're supposed to take lectures about sexism. I was offended. when the Leader of the Opposition, as Minister of Health, said, and I quote, "Abortion is the easy way out." I was offended when the Leader of the Opposition stood next to a sign that described me as a man's bitch. I was offended by misogyny and sexism every day from this Leader of the Opposition. And now the Leader of the Opposition wants to be taken seriously. He's woken up. Oh dear, there's this thing called sexism. There's this thing called misogyny. The Leader of the Opposition tells us to do something. Well, he could do something himself if he wants to deal with sexism in this Parliament. He could apologise for past statements. He could apologise for standing next to signs describing me as a bitch. But the Leader of the Opposition is now looking at his watch. Because apparently a woman's spoken too long. He could change a standard himself if he sought to do so. But we will see none of that. Because on these questions, he is incapable of change. He could change a standard himself if he sought to do so, but we will see none of that. Because on these questions, he is incapable of change.
So let the ladies do what they were born to do. Raise the vibration and make a better place for me and you. So put a woman in charge. Put a woman in charge. Put the women in charge. Put the women in charge. Put a woman in charge. Put a woman in charge. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. We're gonna feel the magic when the girls take over. It's gonna be fantastic.
I ran away from home at age 17. In 1933 to 1934, we worked 6-hour shifts at 37 cents an hour. We would have to work at a high rate of speed. It was summer. It would be so hot that women used to pass out. The ladies' room was on the floor below, and I would help carry these women down almost vertical stairs into the washroom. We started talking union. The thing that started it is that on the floor below, we used to make hot dogs, and one of the women, in putting the meat into the chopper, got her fingers caught. There were no safety guards. Her fingers got into the hot dogs and they were chopped off. It was horrible. 3 of us colonizers had a meeting during our break and decided that it was time to have a stoppage, and we did. All 6 floors went on strike. We had stopped working right inside the building, protesting the speed and the unsafe conditions. Well, we got the company to put in safety devices. Soon after the work stoppage, the supervisors were looking for the leaders because people were taking up the action. They found out who was involved, and we were all fired. I was blacklisted.
One of the first strikes that ever took place in this country of the cotton factory operatives was that in Lowell in October of 1836. When it was announced that the wages were to be cut down, there was great indignation, and it was decided to strike en masse. This was done. The mills were shut down, and the girls went in procession from their various corporations to the Grove on Chapel Hill and listened to incendiary speeches from labor reformers. One of the girls got up on a pump and gave vent to the feelings of her companions in a neat speech declaring that it was their duty to resist all attempts at cutting down wages. This was the first time that a woman had spoken in public in Lowell, and it caused great surprise and consternation among her audience.
Sam Johnson declared that patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. He must have had the Wall Street gentry in mind, or at least their prototypes, for in every age it has been the tyrant, the oppressor, and the exploiter who has wrapped himself in the cloak of patriotism, or religion, or both, to deceive and overawe the people.
The working class who fight all the battles, the working class who make the supreme sacrifice, the working class who freely shed their blood and furnish the corpses, has never yet had a voice in either declaring war or making peace. It is the ruling class that invariably does both. They alone declare war and they alone declare peace.
Yours not to reason why, yours, but to do and die.
That is their motto, and we object on the part of the awakening workers of this nation. If war is right, let it be declared by the people.
Never forget that justice is what love looks like in public.
The determination of our slave-holding president to prosecute the war and the probability of his success in wringing from the people men and money to carry it on is mere evident, rather than doubtful, by the puny opposition arrayed against him. No politician of any considerable distinction or eminence seems willing to hazard his popularity with this party. The taste of human blood and the smell of powder seem to have extinguished the senses, seared the conscience, and subverted the reason of people to a degree that well induced the gloomy apprehension that our nation has fully entered on her downward career and yielded herself up to the revolting idea of battle and blood.
You want to know what this was really about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did.
No longer able to rely on the rhetoric of the Cold War, the corporate warmongers need this global terrorism to justify the spread of its empire. The war we oppose is the war waged against the millions of people around the world who live in utter misery. The so-called American dream, to many poor people, is tied to the obligation to fight in a war for corporate domination. They call it an all-volunteer army. To them, I say this. Show me a society where everyone has access to healthcare. Show me a society where everyone has access to education. Show me a society where everyone has access to decent wages where everyone lives a dignified life, and then I will show you an all-volunteer army.
To live is to wrestle with despair, yet never allow despair to have the last word.
I said to my son not to go. I said, you know your unit may have to kill innocent people, and you know you might die. And he says, my buddies are going. If I don't go, my buddies will be in danger. "30 of our bravest young men have already died this month, and it's only the 5th of August. And I just had this brainstorm. I'm going to Crawford. And I'm going to say, okay, listen here, George. You don't have my permission to use my son's name. You tell me the truth. You tell me that my son died for oil. You tell me my son died to make your friends rich. You tell me my son died so that you can spread the cancer of Pax Americana, imperialism in the Middle East. It's up to us as moral people to break immoral laws and resist. As soon as the leaders of a country start lying to you, they have no authority over you. These maniacs have no authority over us. And they may be able to put our bodies in prison, but they can't put our spirits in prison. When I was growing up, it was communists. Now it's terrorists. So you always have to have somebody that's your enemy to be afraid of so that the war machine can build more bombs and guns and bullets. But I do have hope. I see hope in this country. 58% of the American public are with us. We're preaching to the choir. But not everybody in the choir is singing. If all of the 58% started singing, this war would end.
Truth means the condition of suffering must speak.
Our nation was born in genocide when it embraced the doctrine of the original American, the indigenous, was an inferior race. Even before there were large numbers of Negroes on our shores, the scar of racial hatred had already disfigured colonial society. From the 16th century forward, blood flowed in battles of racial supremacy. We are perhaps the only nation which tried, as a matter of national policy, to wipe out its indigenous population. Moreover, we elevated the tragic experience into a noble crusade. Indeed, even today, we have not permitted ourselves to reject or to feel remorse for this shameful episode. Our literature, our films, our drama, our folklore, all exalt it.
I have come this evening to talk with you on one of the greatest issues of our time. That is the preservation of human freedom. Basic human rights are simple and easily understood. Freedom of speech and a free press, freedom of religion and worship, freedom of assembly and the right of petition, the right of men to be secure in their homes and free from unreasonable search and seizure, and from arbitrary arrest and punishment. We must not be deluded by the efforts of the forces of reaction to prostitute the great words of our free tradition, and thereby to confuse the struggle. These are not just abstract ideals to us. They are tools with which we create a way of life. The final expression of the people is through free and honest elections, with valid choices on basic issues and candidates. Basic decisions are made through the expressed will of the people. That is why when we see those liberties threatened, instead of falling apart, our nation becomes unified and our democracies come together as a unified group, in spite of our varied backgrounds and many racial strains. The future must see the broadening of human rights throughout the world. People who have glimpsed freedom will never be content until they have secured it for themselves. In a truest sense, human rights are a fundamental object of law and government in a just society. Human rights exist to the degree that they are respected by people in relations with each other and by governments in relations with their citizens. People who continue to be denied the respect to which they are entitled as human beings will not acquiesce forever in such denial.
You think OWS is radical? You think 350.org was radical for helping organize mass civil disobedience in DC in August against the Keystone Pipeline? We're not radical. Radicals work for oil companies. The CEO of Exxon gets up every morning and goes to work changing the chemical composition of the atmosphere. No one has ever done anything as radical as that, not in all of human history.
In fact, corporations are the infants of our society. They know very little except how to grow, though they're very good at that. And they howl when you set limits. Socializing them is the work of politics. It's about time we took it up again.
Let me give you a word on the philosophy of reform. The whole history of progress of human liberty shows that all concessions yet made to her august claims have been born of earnest struggle. If there is no struggle, there is no progress.
Today is a discovery. Who am I? Listening to and believing in me, grateful for the learnings I have had.
Who am I?
Will I accept myself, thank myself, love myself, forgive myself?
Who am I?
I am moving. Slowly, but I am moving. Still confused, wondering.
Who am I?
I feel calmness. The stillness quiets me to hear my body. It's all I have. Me. I'm me. All of me. Heart filled, body bruised, mindful of reformation, bursting at the seams, flooded with life, engulfed in flames. I find my way here. This time.
This time.
This life.
This life.
I'm grateful to be alive and swelling of great reflection. Pleasure in the embracing sounds of willing acceptance. The time is now to take every step to wash away the despair and refresh my soul and spirit.
This country is in deep trouble. We've forgotten that a rich life consists fundamentally of serving others, trying to leave the world a little better than when you found it. We need the courage to question the powers that be, the courage to be impatient with evil and patient with people, the courage to fight for social justice.